Hello, welcome to this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what I wish I knew when I was 16 years old, or like what I would tell like any other young girl that I run into. Okay, so the number one thing that I would tell 16-year-old me, or just like any young girl in general, is that you're allowed to say no, and it's completely acceptable to say no, and no is a complete sentence. Like, I feel like girls, like especially like young girls, like we're just socialized to like be polite and to be nice, and like saying no is like deemed as like impolite for some reason. And I feel like girls, like especially like young girls, like we'll be in so many situations that make us feel uncomfortable or like disrespected, but like we don't want to like make it awkward, or like we don't want to like cause tension, so then we undermine our own feelings in order for the other person to feel comfortable. But it's like, I feel like girls, like we need to start prioritizing our own feelings and learn that it's completely fine to say no, and you have a right to say no. And also, like when you say no, you don't have to give people like this like great justification for like why the answer is no. Because like, so like when I was like younger, when I was 16, or like when I was younger, like whenever I would say no, I would always feel like I would have to give the other person like this like great explanation of why the answer is no. But honestly, like the justification for the no doesn't matter. Like, no is a complete sentence, and you are completely allowed to just be like, no, period, like end of sentence, end of discussion. You don't have to give people a justification of why the answer is no. And I think it's so important for young girls to prioritize our own feelings and like stop deprioritizing our feelings when we're in situations that make us feel like upset or mad. Like, it's okay to say no, or like to vocalize your feelings. It's completely fine. Okay, so the next thing that I would tell 16-year-old me is that you don't need to be friends with everyone, and like you're obligated to be selective in who you want to be friends with. Or like if you don't want to be friends with someone, like you have the right to not be friends with people. The reason why I feel this way is because like I've just like come to the conclusion that like people know what they're doing. Like when like friends say shady stuff, or like when friends are disrespectful, like they know what they're doing. So like if people know what they're doing, like you have the right to have boundaries and be like, you know what, I don't want this in my life, I don't want this person in my life. Like when I was 16 years old, I was friends with this girl who literally like once a week she would get mad at me. She'd either get mad at me or she would get mad at like someone else in our school. And like when she would get mad at me, she would cuss me out, and she would just be like so mean and disrespectful. And I remember like just feeling like this is not how friends are supposed to talk to each other. Like, even if you're mad at me, you should still have like a level of respect when you talk to me about your feelings. But like she was just like so disrespectful, and like she would just like make me so upset when she would get mad at me. And she would literally get mad at me like once a week. And at the time, like I felt like obligated to stay in that friendship, so I tolerated that stuff. I just remember feeling so trapped in this friendship, and like I had to be friends with her. And especially because like in high school, like you're in like a confined space, so you're inevitably gonna run into people. And I was like, oh, like I don't want it to be awkward if I cut her off. But honestly, like if someone is being disrespectful, if someone's being mean, like they know what they're doing, so you have the right to cut people out of your life. Like, I think it's important to be respectful and to be civil and courteous, but there's a difference between being friendly and to being friends. Like you can be friendly with people and chill with people, but like your friends, I think girls, like young girls, I feel like we should be more selective in who we choose to be in our inner circle. Because it's like we always talk about like being like picky and being selective when it comes to your romantic relationships, but nobody ever talks about like being picky with your platonic relationships. But I feel like you should still have standards, and like people like just can't talk to you any type of way or treat you any type of way and think you're gonna stay, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah. The third thing that I would say to like 16-year-old me is that it's better to be alone than to be with people who make you feel alone. And that's like a very important lesson to learn, because I feel like when you don't like being alone, and like when you're not comfortable being alone, you tolerate so much from other people just because like, so like let's say like this is like 10 and this is 0, and like by yourself you feel like this, like close to 0, and then other people, when you're around other people, they're like this. So it's like you literally like will tolerate anything. If you're like up here, like this is how you feel by yourself, and then you hang around people and they make you feel like this, then you won't tolerate it. Because it's like, if I can make myself feel like this good, like why would I tolerate people who make me feel less than that? And like when I was in high school, there was this semester, like me and this girl, like we got so close, and literally because I didn't like to be alone, we would literally FaceTime all the time. Like we would just constantly be on FaceTime, and like we wouldn't even be talking. I just like wanted her presence because I didn't want to be alone and I didn't feel comfortable being alone. But I think it's so important, like if you're one of those people who doesn't like to be alone, I think it's so important to like force yourself to be alone, because I genuinely believe that the human body like can heal itself and like can grow like completely on your own. Like you don't need to use other people, like you don't need to use like relationships or friendships to fill voids within. Like you can heal on your own, and you can get to the point where you don't feel like you have voids to fill. So the next thing that I would say to like young girls in general, and this is regarding peer pressure, like if you ever feel pressure from your peers, like they don't actually care about you. So that's one reason to never give into peer pressure, is because like the people that you feel pressure from, like those peers, like they don't actually care about you. So it's like if you feel like left out because you haven't done something, or you're like the only one who doesn't do something, if you ever feel left out about that, it's like the people around you that you feel pressure from, like they don't actually care what you're doing or like care about your well-being. I feel like when you have to deal with the consequences of like whatever actions you did because of the peer pressure, like nobody will be by your side. Like all those people that you feel pressure from will not be by your side. And like whenever I go jogging with my mom, like she always tells me like don't speed. Like if you ever feel pressure to speed, don't speed, because one, if you get in an accident, all those people that you felt pressure from just keep driving. Like nobody waits for you in life. And two, if you get pulled over because you were speeding, again, like nobody waits for you in life. They just keep driving on. And I feel like that also applies to peer pressure. If you ever feel pressure to do something and then you do it and you have to face consequences for what you did, all those people that you felt pressure from like will not wait for you. Like life goes on, like they go on with their life. Let's say everyone is planning to skip school on Friday, and like so everyone, like so all your friends, you guys skip school on Friday, and somehow you're the only one that gets caught, and because of that like you get suspended because you skipped school. I know it makes no sense, but like let's just say you get suspended because you skipped school. All those people, and let's say like the other people, like they don't get caught, so you're the only one who gets caught. All those people who you skipped with, like none of them are gonna come by your side. Like none of them are gonna be like, oh yeah, like I also skipped, like suspend me too. Like no, like you have to deal with consequences completely on your own. And like if you feel peer pressure to do something, you probably like don't even want to do it anyways, because like if you wanted to do something, you wouldn't feel pressure to do it. So one, don't fall into peer pressure, because for one, like people who make you feel pressure to do something are not your real friends, because your real friends wouldn't peer pressure you. And two, if you have to deal with any consequences that come from you succumbing to the pressure, you'll have to deal with it completely on your own. Like literally everyone else will just go on with their life, act as though like they didn't like play any role in you doing what you did. So yeah, that's why you should never give in to peer pressure. So the next thing is you teach people how to treat you based off of your boundaries and what you choose to tolerate. And like when I realized this was such a huge awakening to me. Like, if someone is doing something that you don't like and you don't say anything, like you're teaching them that it's okay to treat me this way. Or like you're teaching them that like if you do this to me, even though I don't like it, I'm not going to speak up about it. And I remember like when I was younger, and I feel like a lot of young girls are the same, it's like you feel so uncomfortable voicing your boundaries and like voicing when you feel like hurt or like uncomfortable or disrespected. Like for some reason, like we're just like not, I don't know, I just feel like for some reason like that's just something that a lot of girls just don't feel comfortable doing. And I definitely, when I was like 16, I did not feel comfortable voicing my boundaries, and as a result, like people like would talk to me any type of way or treat me any type of way. Asserting your boundaries is like a muscle, and like the more that you do it, the more comfortable you get doing it. You teach people how to treat you. So if people are talking to you any type of way, people are saying stuff, blah blah blah, like it's your responsibility to stand up for yourself. Like if you don't stand up for yourself, who will? Okay, so the next thing is listen to your intuition, and like whenever you feel a gut instinct, like listen to it and like lean into it. I feel like you get better at following your intuition and listening to your intuition the more that you do it. It's like a muscle. So I would tell like any young girl, like whenever your intuition is telling you to do something or telling you not to do something, like listen to it. Like I've never heard anyone say like I regret listening to my gut instinct. Like nobody, like you have a gut instinct for a reason. Like it's there for a reason. So listen to your intuition. Okay, and the next thing that I would say is like learn what it means to love yourself and respect yourself. Like I feel like growing up, like we get told all the time to respect ourselves and to love ourselves, but like nobody ever tells us how to do it or like what that looks like. Like you just get told like, oh, respect yourself, and if you like do something that's not respectable, then they're like, oh, like she should respect herself or she doesn't respect herself. But it's like no one ever teaches young girls like what does it mean to respect yourself and what does it look like to like love yourself. Like what does that actually mean? So I would tell any young girl like to love yourself and to respect yourself. For me personally, I feel like it comes when you have an appreciation for yourself, like when you genuinely just like yourself, and like you build a healthy self-esteem when you do things that make you feel good inside. Like I feel like that's how you build a healthy self-esteem, is like you do things that make you feel good about yourself and make you feel good inside, and from then like you just learn to appreciate yourself. And I feel like when you appreciate yourself, like when you genuinely just have an appreciation for yourself, like the way that you appreciate others, like when you feel that way towards yourself, that's when you like start to like love yourself and respect yourself. So the next one is you're not as grown as you think you are. I remember when I was 18, I don't know about 16, but I know like when I was 18, I don't know why, I just thought I was so grown for some reason. I don't know why. And then like I feel like going to France made me realize how young I actually am, because I went to France when I was 19, and then I realized like I'm actually very young. There's actually like a lot to learn and there's like a lot to experience in life. And now I feel like the older I get, the younger I feel. Even though I'm 21, like I feel very young, and I feel like I have like so much of my life ahead of me, and like there's so much I want to do and there's so much I have time to do, versus that like when I was younger, I don't know why, I just thought I was so grown. But honestly, like you're not as grown as you think you are, and there's so much to learn. And like I would advise any like young girl, like talk to people who are older than you, like talk to people like the older people in school or like older family members, and just like ask them for advice about life, you know, or ask them about their regrets. Like I feel like when you're in like your late teens, you feel like you're grown. Like when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, you feel like you're grown for some reason, and then you hit like 20 and 21 and you're like, oh, I'm actually so young. The next thing is easier said than done, but it's like just don't compare yourself, don't compare your life to other people's lives. And I've like come to this conclusion because I feel like the more that I talk to people, the more that I realize like everyone is going through struggles in life. I feel like there's so many life experiences that nobody is immune from. Like there's so many like struggles and like misfortunes in life that like everyone experiences, like nobody's immune from. So that's why you shouldn't compare yourself to others, because it's like it's so easy to think someone's life is perfect, but like I promise you, like there has never been a time when I have genuinely had like a deep discussion with someone and I felt like, oh, that person's life is perfect. Because honestly, every single time that I talk to someone and we have a proper chat, it just confirms that nobody is immune to like problems and hardships in life. Like we all experience it. So there's no point in comparing yourself to others, because like what if someone, like can you imagine if someone compared like their life to your life and they thought your life was perfect? Like wouldn't that seem so bizarre? But then it's like for some reason we do it with other people. Okay, so the last one, I feel like I should have done this earlier in the video, but it's don't internalize boys' actions or their lack of action. So like for me, like when I was younger, I remember I watched this TED talk about, it was called like Pretty, I think it was just called Pretty, and she basically just talks about like how girls, like we should aspire to be more than pretty, like to be like pretty talented or pretty smart, you know, we shouldn't just aspire to be pretty. And from that moment, I remember just like making a strong affirmation that I'm never going to base my worth or like how I feel about myself based off of my looks. And like that was just like such a strong affirmation, and from that moment I have never based how I felt about myself based on my looks. And that's how I feel like you have to be with boys' actions or their lack of actions. Like do not internalize it, like just let it like bounce back. Like when I did that strong affirmation, like if anyone ever says anything about my looks, I never internalize it. Like it literally just like bounces back. Like I just don't internalize people's comments about my looks, and like I don't base my self-worth or my self-esteem based off of my looks. And I feel like that's how you have to be with boys' actions or boys, like whatever boys say. Like don't base like your self-worth and your self-esteem off of like what boys do or like what boys say about you or like what they don't do. Like if you don't get attention, like just don't internalize that and then like deem yourself like less worthy or like less lovable because of a boy. Like no, don't internalize boys' actions, period. Okay, so I'm 21 now, and these are 10 things that I would tell like 16-year-old me or like just any young girl in general, These are like life lessons that I've come to at the age of 21, the young age of 21. But this is like what I would tell myself, or just like what I would tell young girls in general. But also like when I was like coming up with like all of these things, I kind of like realized like a lot of these lessons, like I feel like you have to go through them and experience them to come to this conclusion. Like sometimes when people give you advice, you don't follow it until you like until you have like a bad experience, and then you're like, oh, like I should have listened. That's kind of how I feel like with this. Like I would tell 16-year-old me this, but I don't know if I would listen. But anyways, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I want to start posting more weekly girl talk videos kind of like this. So yeah,